this episode, Horus Rising by Dan Ablett. So the book we are discussing today is... Oh, that didn't work. Oh no! Oh, there you go!
Oh, got it!
Horus Rising! The first book of the Horus Heresy. This one was written by Dan Ablett. I think the whole series has a bunch of different authors for each of the books. Yeah, it's part of the Warhammer 40k world, which I know very little about, which is why I'm really, really glad to be joined by P.Y. Say hi, P.Y.
Hello.
Thank you for not saying hi, P.Y. back.
Yeah, that's not a default for me.
Okay, good.
I'm not that obnoxious.
Oh, not that. I am. So, it's just the two of us today, which is actually quite good. Because you're going to be our resident expert, PY, about this world. Because I know nothing about it. Literally, I put this book on the list because my friend John... You've met John, right? John Palmer.
So, we've chatted, and I think I've met him in person without really knowing about it back when we did Archery Tag for your birthday. I think that's the only time I've seen John in person.
Really?
And not remember.
Not in any of, like, the Eric's tabletop things?
No, I haven't tabletopped with Eric in a while.
I mean, no, clearly pre-pandemic.
Anyway. No, I mean, even, no, we were always in different groups.
Oh, okay. Yeah, John Palmer was playing a game in this world. I think it was Space Marine, we decided in our chat before this.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with the complexity of the characters and the story. I'm like, maybe the books won't be that bad. So I put this one in the ring, and it won last spin of the wheel. So I'm going to start with general impressions of the book. PY?
So, my Warhammer knowledge, I'm going to, it is this big, because I know Warhammer is, like, that big, to the point that it's off the screen. I was lost for a little bit, if only because certain things weren't quite making sense, but then I realized that this might actually be Warhammer 30k, which I only recently found out about, and it's more human-centric than anything else. So, same premise. I mean, you still have humanity that thinks it's the absolute best, and they're on crusades to basically put everyone into compliance. And if you don't, they basically burn your house down at that Trogdor.
Mm-hmm. Fascism.
But what?
Fascism.
But overall, I enjoyed the pacing for the first 2/3. Get more into that afterwards. I enjoyed the characters. Maybe the only thing, this is a personal thing. I am horrible with people's names. Horrendous. So I can play video games and I know people's faces, but then you tell me to name them, I don't know, same thing with shows. So the amount of names that are dropped, and certain people will use a character's first or last name. So they're sometimes oh yes, okay, keep going. So having listened to it, it was a little easier because I had the voices to match things to.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, that was confusing for me too. So my general impression of the book was I liked it well enough. It wasn't groundbreaking. I was expecting, I was a little worried that it might be one of those sci-fi books that glorify empire and conquest. And it didn't much, which was nice. But I was really annoyed by the heavy-handed Jesus allegory with Horus, particularly right at the end. Which is odd because I didn't like Horus at all as a character until right at the end. And then the "why have you forsaken me, Father" line came out, and I threw the book in the air. I'm like, fuck off! It's so heavy-handed.
Yeah, but that, from what I know of Warhammer, is how the Imperium works. Mm-hmm. The Emperor is there. They can say he's not their god all they want, but he is their highest figure. There's nothing higher than your Emperor.
He is.
And from what I've understood, it's like that in fantasy and in 3040k. So it's the emperor's here, and everyone else has to do his bidding, otherwise you're a heretic and you're put to death.
Yeah, and one of the things that I liked about this is you saw how the emperor is becoming a god, in fact. One of the remembrancers, sorry, even has like a little idol that she pulls out of the emperor that she pulls out and prays to. And she thanks the emperor for his sons who are protecting all of humanity, quote unquote, on behalf of the emperor/god. So he becomes a deity, in fact.
To some of them, which technically is heresy to everybody else, which is kind of funny.
Yes and no, because they treat him like he's a god king, right? And
but he's not. I know not. It's...
And he would insist that he's not, but that's not the way he's treated. Right down to how the differences in the way people interpret his will.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, religion.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only character that I truly liked from the off was Loken, whose name is also Garviel.
Gaviel? I think is how I ended up hearing it. They didn't
pronounce the hard R?
No. So here's the other thing.
It's spelled Garviel. Was it a British accent? It was Garviel?
Not quite a British accent, but it's like it was done in multiple different voice tones, depending on the character. But one of the other thing is, after I'd say about 2/3 of listening to it, I had to go look it up because I'm like, there's no way this guy's name is Logan. And then I finally saw that. Then I finally saw it, and then I really focused when people said it. I'm like, okay, there we go.
Yeah,
that makes a little more sense to me because you had a whole bunch of other names. I'm like, Logan doesn't fit in any of this.
Yeah.
But no, at first I'm just like, okay, Logan is one of these. I am stoic. I will do, the emperor's bidding, blah, blah, blah. But then you saw the thought processes. You saw that, yes, he's going to do his job and he's going to do it to the absolute letter. But he is going to think about things afterwards when it's over because he still has his job to do.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else. So I'm like, okay, you know what?
He's very much I agree. He's very much a product of his breeding. He is the weapon of the Empire. That's what he's been bred for. That's what all of the Astartes have been bred for, right? These giant behemoths that are designed simply for crushing other civilizations who refuse to be brought to heel. But he is quite reflexive. Like, he didn't kill the other emperor that they meet at the very start of the book right away, right? He's like, well, he's asked for parlance, so no, we're not going to kill him right away. He does end up getting killed. And then afterwards he's like, why couldn't have we just left them alone? And I was like,
he's not two-dimensional, which I appreciated. Because I went into this figuring I was in for a 2D thrill ride of shoot/hack or shoot, hack, slash, kill. That's what I expected because I'm like, we're seeing this from the point of view of the Imperium.
Yeah.
And if they're on a crusade, it's what we're going to get.
Yeah,
but it wasn't what we got, and I was kind of happy about that.
Yes, I really enjoyed that about the book because I had the same fear going in. Like, oh, great, this is from the perspective of the Imperium. It's going to be nothing but glorifying war and colonization and all of the atrocities that go along with it. But it wasn't that at all. And it does show that at least one of the soldiers had a brain and was not just a mindless killing machine. It was nice. I enjoyed that. Loken is my favorite character of the group. I also like the remembrancer that he attached to himself, whose name escapes me now, but it begins with an M. She's the one who basically
names.
I know. She's the one who basically here. I'll find it here somewhere.
Because I know the name of the other one, just because she's the one who has the pedestal, and it's Fraley Keeler, who took the pictures and stuff. But I can't remember the name of the other one. Mercedes.
Thank you.
Can't remember the last name, but
Mercedes O'Litton.
Yeah.
Olatin?
I think Olatin is how they're
Olatin?
pronouncing
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Yeah, Mercedes. All right. Thank you. I liked her very much. Um, and they're really
Somebody
the
who's oh,
sorry, I was gonna say they're really the only characters who stood out to me as being remotely decent characters.
decent, yes. Because I mean, one of them who was a piece of shit was one of the other remembrancers, the poet,
Oh
who
yeah, who nearly got himself beaten to death.
well, you think he's dead
Yes,
after that first
yes.
chapter, but while going
Carksay.
through his process with his books, and you're like, oh my god, you're one of these who is just like, you're a pompous ass.
You
But
hipster
he
dick.
but he goes through and he starts writing down all the graffiti, all the things, and he ends up almost getting beaten to death because he basically spoke out and said nothing ever lasts.
Mm-hmm. Like the
This
people
will
who
all
built.
fall someday. Just like here, who was another advanced human civilization with their own emperor. Um, he showed that he had depth even if he was an asshat.
Oh, he was an ass. He was a complete ass. But yeah, I did like that he was recording the minutia instead of the big glory stuff. Because I mean, a big problem with history that we have is a lot of the minutia wasn't recorded, right? So we don't have a very good idea about how ordinary people lived. We just know about like the big names in history, which is a problem, right? And has been abused and misused. By people who claim to know all about history. For example, all of those twits who were like, you don't see any women in history. What did women contribute? And you're just like, fucking everything, you moron. So, I mean, even if they didn't do any of the big stuff, which a lot of them did, hello, Wi-Fi, seatbelts, like fucking a whole bunch of shit. None of it would have been possible if men were stuck at home with the kids, right? Big stuff was able to happen because other stuff took care of the little minutia, the boring stuff, right? And because we don't know what happened in there, we don't really have a very full understanding of history. So I did like Carksay's character for that reason, that he was willing to pick up on all like the small things, how the conquered actually felt, instead of like big propaganda pieces glorifying the victories.
Yeah, and seeing him a little later that he reports to Loken like every few days, and Loken tells him he wants the truth no matter how bad the truth
No matter
may
how ugly it
be,
gets, yeah.
which shows his openness a little more, like even more, where not everything is just black and white. There is gray, and he is willing to accept that there's gray, even if he has to outwardly portray that everything is black and white.
Well, and also
Even
his
if, as part of the Mournival, if he is allowed to speak up and say, no, this is dumb.
yeah.
It's his job to say, no, this is dumb. How about this?
Yes. And it was one of the notes that I had made while I was doing my buddy read was shortly after like that speech about no matter how ugly it is, we cannot make the best decisions if we don't know the whole truth. And I was like, slight lessening of fascism? I do like the book. I do like that the book didn't really glorify the Empire. It was just, it was a situation which the characters found themselves in. Some of them were a little more zealous about it than others, but it really did focus on what the characters were experiencing rather than what the Empire was doing for or to the universe.
Yeah, and I mean, you're on these giant ships that I just didn't catch if they were cathedral ships or not, which they're fucking floating cities. They look like flying cathedrals, and they are massive. So to know that, there's all the high shininess of like the upper bridges, and then at one point you are getting like the sewer systems that they're talking about, which is basically the worst levels you can find yourself on. So it's like you have all these people that are somewhere between these various floors, all still managing to come together in certain situations, and it's how they come together, or how the hierarchy puts them together.
Hmm. The
Um,
descriptions of the ships very much reminded me of the necromongers in um oh god, the sequel to Pitch Black. What's it called? It's one of my favorite ones.
Chronicles of Riddick.
Chronicles of Riddick. Thank you.
I was just like, wait, Necromongers. I'm like, I know
The
that.
necromongers from the Chronicles of Riddick. Just the
I had
description
to
of the ship with
leave
like
this series into another one that I wasn't making the leap.
with the black pillars that had gold inscriptions on them, like the in the hall of heroes. Oh my god, Galahad, are you okay?
Pay attention to me.
No, he's throwing up.
Aw, Munchkin.
I have to go clean that up later. Yeah, the description of the ship reminded me a little of the necromongers, which was an interesting parallel because they're supposed to be these glorious, like, conquerors, and the necromongers were much more baroque, dark baroque, kind of. But it felt the same. Like the descriptions felt the same to me.
That'd be pretty accurate. I had for certain parts, I had a little more, because I've recently been playing Dark Tide by Fat Shark, which is 40k, and you've been charged for heresy, and the only reason you're not executed is they realize they're a little short on troops to go down into these suicide missions. So you get to see parts of this ship. You get to see parts of, crashed ships or cathedral cities. So I'm just like, okay, I had a little bit of that to, mentally base myself on. Which brings me to appreciating that the various locations that the story takes place. So the first one takes place taking out the emperor that they put in quotes because he is a false one to them because theirs is the real one.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the Snowy Mountains where
Yeah,
they
the
go
Whisperheads.
in, the Whisperheads where they go in and Samus is basically whispering and everything else. Where I do like that they compare that this world's major demon was Samus in comparison to their own.
Satan
Do
or
they
Tiamat.
use? I was just like, no, because I had expected, Satan or Lucifer. I'm just like, yeah, but Tiamat. I'm like, what?
Well,
What?
it's sort of based on I think she's Babylonian or Assyrian. Tiamat. Tiamat.
Okay,
But
maybe it's I'm thinking Dungeons and Dragons, where it's a giant freaking dragon,
well, she's supposed to be the
multi-headed
mother of
dragon.
monsters. Tiamat. So she is
Okay,
essentially like the dark force.
maybe that would make sense then. Yeah, I was
Um,
thinking D&D, where it's a giant evil dragon. I'm like, no.
but in the book, they because you listened to it, you wouldn't know they had spelling variations because you know how things
Oh,
the old words get mistranslated and misspelled. So Satan in the book was spelled Seytan. Satan. And
or
Tiamat.
maybe that's what they
Tiamat was
went
spelled
with.
Tiermat. Tearmat.
Really?
Yeah, and I immediately recognized, like, obviously Satan and Tiamat. Um, but the spellings were off. And there was also a mention of Indonesia, but they spelled Indonesia with a Y for some reason. Because, again, trying to make it seem like it was old-timey, mistranslated, misspelt throughout the 31,000 years of humanity's existence.
Yeah, and try and keep a record of everything.
Yeah, exactly. There was something else that I really liked. Oh, the lodge.
Yeah,
I
that I expected to go a completely different direction until Loken saw everybody he knew there, and he's like,
that
because
funny.
you're prepared to find out because they're calling it the warp before finding out that it's chaos. Because that's the one big thing, whether it's
Which
fantasy or 40k, chaos is there, and chaos will morph the shit out of something.
I mean, I yes, keep going. I want to circle back to that, but keep going.
So you're expecting to find a whole bunch of other people like Duval who could potentially just be on the cusp of switching, morphing, and I was expecting a zombie apocalypse breakout. I didn't get it, which is fine because we did get our Starship Troopers into the like third
Kill the bugs.
phase. Yeah, kill the murderous bugs with these with the Blood Angels and the Imperial Children on the ground.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my god, you guys are morons. Just leave. No, what
they
happens?
can't. They're conquesting.
Yeah, so instead, it's just like you get a whole bunch of others dropped in. How many pods did they drop? 40? It was just like, okay, yeah, they're you winded.
Yeah,
but
and I loved how
felt...
arrogance led to their downfall. Yeah.
But the one thing with that, and that's where I started to feel the pacing was a little off, because the beginning with False Emperor and then moving to the Whisperheads, they all felt contained. But then you get this and you're getting the back and forth. So 1 minute you're up on the ships in the fleet, and the next you're down on the ground. And then all of a sudden it's just over. And then it's the other human race shows up and they're like, why didn't you listen to our warnings? I'm like, because we were too stupid to figure out what you were saying. And then boom, it's over. I'm like, but no, I wanted a little more of how down there happened, maybe with, a little more out of the Remembrancers, a little more out of like stuff. But no, it's over. And now, the idiots who are down on the ground are now up in a training room with, yours truly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, okay, this is going too fast. There's something missing right here.
The ending did feel a bit rushed. I do have to say that the chaos / warp, how they're like, there's no such thing as demons and spirits, but here's this bunch of interdimensional entities that we don't actually know much about that can possess people and change their appearance. Oh, so you mean there are such things as demons and spirits? What the fuck? Just because you don't want to believe it and you call it something else doesn't mean it's not the thing that these primitive, superstitious people believe it is. I mean, it made me laugh so much. Because again, it's like that arrogance of, no, there is nothing beyond what we know.
La 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 la.
And it turns out there is, in fact, tons of stuff beyond what you know. And maybe demon is the correct term. Like, the fuck?
Demons and possessions.
Although
because that's exactly...
When it first happened, I was like, ooh, this is a nice random horror twist. And then they described how Javal was changing. And I'm like, wait, is this werewolves in space? Because they talked about him growing a muzzle, right?
Yeah, but then the rest of it all, keeps going.
And then it was like, oh, no, it's not. It's okay. Because I wrote a note on the buddy read. I was just like, werewolves in space, ?
I also appreciated how they later come back to it and you get to hear that the pictures were distorted only around that being, but everything else was crystal clear. Because at first you hear like there's distortion. You're like, okay, so, it was an off-focus shot, but then they're like, the beads of blood were as clear as possible. But everything surrounding this thing was blurry, but there was still no mistaking it, but it was just out of focus. It was out of sync.
And then when they clean up the picture a little bit, it's unmistakably Jorval. Like, it's not the weird, twisted, giant creature. It's unmistakably the Luna Wolf. So you're just like, oh, wow, okay, cool. And then you completely understand why Keela turns to religion to try and make sense of what she saw, even if that religion is heretical worship of a real living, breathing emperor who himself has declared that he is not a deity.
But when you're technically living forever, unless somebody, kills you, because they're immortal by age by this point. Yes. Which is also kind of cool of some of them going, like 300 years ago. And you're like, what?
I couldn't
Right,
listen
you
to it
aren't
forever.
normal humans anymore.
Yeah.
But then you see some of the situations they go through, and like, you've been doing this for 300 years.
Aren't you tired?
Don't you have questions?
Also, at that point, wouldn't you want to just kind of throw yourself off a cliff? Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. Figure it out yourself. Bye.
Peace out.
Peace out, exactly.
Uh,
So yeah, there was a lot of interesting stuff and philosophical things that were raised in this book that I wish we had more time to explore within the text. I'm wondering if maybe in later books in the series that's what happens, but it would have been more interesting to me, particularly at the end where everything felt a little rushed, is if we dove into those philosophical things a little more.
yeah, and I think this was what, a trilogy out of like a set of 46.
Is it 46? Oh
I
god.
think it's 46 to have everything together. Different authors.
Yeah, the next author is Graham McNeil, and the book is False Gods.
But they're all Warhammer authors, so it's
Mm.
they live and breathe this stuff, and they've configured stories to certain time periods. Because I would be interested in finding out more of this. Because, like I said, my
Ah.
Warhammer's about like yay big.
I mean,
I'd
it's better
probably
than mine. Like when you mentioned, like, oh, I realized that this was 30K, and it started to make a lot more sense. I'm like, sure.
well in
Oh,
40K, I'm expecting the orcs. I'm expecting what is it, the Eldar. I'm expecting actual Chaos Marines and stuff. I'm expecting all these other, as they just call them, Xenos, because they're just like, we're not going to give them all their own proper name. Oh, I'm sorry. They call them the Greenskins
yeah, the
in
Greenskins.
passing, but
There were a
everything
couple of
else is
mentions.
just, and the others are just like, they're all just aliens.
Yeah,
Here's the bucket term that we're using for them because they're not human. And even if they are human, are they our type of human? I'm
yeah,
like,
they're
oh
not
my God, people.
good enough humans. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially at that very end point where they're like, wait, you keep aliens with you? What? Well, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they surrendered to us, so we weren't about to wipe them all out. But that's gross.
And it's not even
No,
that
it's not.
they surrendered, but in the surrendering, they sort of changed the human culture that supposedly supplanted them, right? Because now the human culture speaks with arias instead of just normal human language, and a lot of this stuff has been integrated.
So they became more for it.
Yeah, exactly, which is a stark contrast to the Imperium. And I do like that at the end, Horus was like, ha ha ha, I might be War Master, but war is not the objective here. The objective here is unification, and that can be achieved without war. And I'm like, I like you now. I hated you most of the book because you were way too cheerful and happy, and I don't know what they were going for with that. I would sooner follow Loken into battle than Horus.
For a lot of it, I'm like, okay, what's your angle?
Yeah,
Because you are too happy about this, you are too laissez-faire.
yeah.
Um, so just like, okay, what is your angle? Because you have your Mournival. You have these four people who you're willing to take their advice on certain matters or listen to at least their points of view on, these matters. And it's just like, okay, what's with you? Because a
Mm-hmm.
war master, their decision is almost law.
I mean, it
It's
is.
only,
Their
it's
decision is an
only,
extension of the Emperor's.
so it can only be superseded by upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, this is weird. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I got you. I see
Was
your
it? Yeah, it
game.
was in literally last when he started losing his temper at the people who were telling him that he should just start a war. I'm like, oh, finally, some depth to this character. You yell at them, yes. I like you a little better now.
You tell him I'll only forgive him if he comes back and
Oh yeah,
apologizes with a quiet whisper.
yeah, yeah. So, uh, it was so weird. I knew Horus Rising. It made it sound like I should like root for Horus, but I didn't until right at the very end.
No, there's a few characters. I'm just like, okay, I'm still not sure what some of your angles are. Like, there's certain, like little Horus, you don't get much out of. He's there in the background, he's a stoic figure. He's what you expect an Imperial Marine to be like, or an Imperial commander.
Yeah, you don't
Um,
expect somebody to be super cheerful hugging people all the time.
yeah.
Yeah, Horus. All right, we're going a little bit over time. So, we're going to go with final impressions of the book and star rating.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun listen in this case. Um, Definitely was not what I expected to go into, so it was a pleasant surprise on that fact. So I'm putting it like star rating, so like 4 out of 5.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's fair.
Like it was far beyond what I was expecting. So, and it's something that I wouldn't be off this book. I wouldn't mind going into the rest of it. So yeah, 4 out of 5.
Yeah, so similar feelings exactly. Like reading this book, I'm like, yeah, that was fun. It wasn't especially deep or thought-provoking, and the characters won't stay with me in the way that some characters do for books I've read, but I really wouldn't mind reading more in this world at all. In fact, I think I have the second book. I ordered the first and second together because it was a deal or something. I can't remember, but I think I do have the second book. So we will be reading more in it. And I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting a very shallow 2D examination of battle and glory, and it turned out to be much more complicated than that, which I appreciated. But again, because the characters aren't just going to sit with me for a while, and I didn't have any profound feelings one way or another when I finished the book, I gave it a 3.5 star. Because it was good, but it wasn't good, Okay, so let us know what you thought of the book. You can leave it in the comments below when this goes up on YouTube. Until then, PY, tell the people where they can find you and what it is you're doing.
I nowadays can only actually be found on Twitter under Wrath of Pi. I closed everything else off. Just as that kind of retirement thing. So I'm still reviewing for Schalger's Game Room, but like much more casually.
And
But
you stream though, right?
stream for charity a couple times a year. And just to finish off the stream, Wrath of Pi on Twitch, I guess would be the other place. And to finish off 8-Bit Adventures 2, I'm going to be streaming Sunday mornings over cups of coffee for the next little while. And if it works well enough, then it might just be Sunday morning cup of coffee streams.
That's
Casual, nothing intense, just retro 8-bit, 16-bit games, and whoever wants to stop by to chat can chat.
Awesome sauce. You can find me at S.M. Carrière or S.M. Carrière Writes on various social media platforms. I am not on Twitter. I left. I am now on Spoutable, which is
Never heard of it.
Okay, it's basic. It's a Twitter alternative that looks and functions almost exactly like Twitter, but they have very stringent line guides on misinformation.
Okay. Yeah, I keep Twitter for all the indie developers for video games.
Yeah,
like that's their biggest spot to keep track of things. So
yeah, I still
that's
have
the only
a Twitter
reason.
account. I'm just never there. Like I haven't deleted my Twitter. I don't use it.
It exists.
It exists, yeah, but you won't find me there. And I'm not. You can't find me doing much of anything except working. At present, I'm trying to write, but I only get an hour lunch, so that's it's not going very fast. Okay, thanks so much for joining us. See you. Oh wait, no, we have to choose.
Don't
the
you
next
have
book.
I was going to say.
We have to choose the next.
I remembered.
Book.
Do you actually have the bowl?
No, Jen and Eric still have the bowl. It's still in their basement library. So I've done this. I am not talking about that. Other people can. Oh no! I didn't actually expect it to come up. Fuck! So confused people at home. That's mine. That's one of mine. So yeah, I guess I'll post that up on the group and ask people if they want to discuss it while I have to edit that shit. So that's going to be our book for next month, guys. Skylark by me. Fuck me.
Hey, I thought it was an amazing read. So I'm not lying when I say 5 on 5, go read it.
Thank you, P.Y. So if you are interested in suggesting a book, join our book club. We are on, it's bookclubs.com, and the book club is Knights at the Round Table, because I am nothing if not completely uninventive when it comes to naming social media platforms. But our next read will be Skylark by S.M. Carrière, and I won't be on that panel. So hopefully we'll be able to get people together for it. Okay, thanks for joining us, guys. Bye.
Bye.